Morning all and welcome to another Jump Advisory recruitment discussion. Hope we're all well and looking good for this week. Last week we got a huge amount of feedback on the candidate attraction piece, and this week we're looking to close the circle and now look at how to maximize on the candidates that we present to our clients with our special guest Nick Beecroft from Odro. So as usual, if you can hear me, please put a hearty good morning into the chat box. It was probably, I reckon, about three and a half years ago that I was doing a recruitment discussion on the future of recruitment for recruitment leaders up in Glasgow. I drove all the way from Leeds. It was a cold December morning, and I arrived and told the key speaker had dropped out. Could I take the last slot and field any questions? And I thought, yeah, why not? So my talk was all about the changing face of recruitment and how AI and other technologies would really change how recruitment moves and how the digital wave was coming and how the leaders of the room had a choice. And I think the choice I gave them was you can either sit on the beach and wait for the digital wave to arrive, or you could swim out into the sea and take a risk and ride that digital wave. I went on to say that those sat on the beach, there's a warning. If the digital waves arrives and you're not on it, you will get swept away. And it'll be very hard to get on the back of that digital wave because it'll be moving at quite some rate. I talked about video technology and looking at the faces of the people in the room and looking at the questions that they said afterwards. I thought the early adopters of video technology are going to have an absolute field day. And I was one of those early adopters, although not using the video technology as today. And so I knew what it could give. But certainly afterwards, the amount of clients that came up to me and agency owners that said, really, candidates and clients are going to do this? I can't see my candidates and clients ever being taking up on this. And then COVID hit. The wave smashed that beachfront and everyone started paddling like crazy, like a dog falling into a lake to get back into the video marketplace. Today, Nick Beecroft, the growth lead. I'm not sure whether that's a disease or whether that's a position. Nick, what is it? I'm not sure
really
about
sure
that.
Either, if I'm honest.
He is the growth lead for Odro. Odro are the market leaders for recruitment technology, 3 times winner Innovation Award for the Italian International and Recruitment Awards. Trusted by more agencies than any of the video platform. They recently completed a £5.2 million investment so they can move their business to the next stage. So as usual, also I'm joined by the Jump team, the 2 Pauls, Dave and Heather. So with such a hot topic, I think I'm going to kick the questions off very, very quickly. So if you have questions, drop them into the chat box. So Nick, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's kick straight off into it. I think the first question we need to really sort of get about is how COVID has changed the way candidates are now being presented to clients and what's going on. So give us a view of what you think on how COVID have now has changed the way clients view candidates and how we should be presenting candidates to our clients.
Yeah, like there was like mass panic, right? Last year, absolute mass panic in the recruitment industry. The industry was shut. There was no way to get people face to face with clients. So absolutely, I had to look at some sort of innovation. And that's where a lot of people who had historically been on the fence or a no around the idea of video, thinking what you just said at the start was video isn't going to be for us. Sorry, I just seen a question there. That was relevant to that. Yeah, but then what we then saw happen was this mass panic around how do we actually then start presenting it to candidates. And as you can see, there's been such a massive increase. I mean, even to see your gran in the last 15, 16 months, you've had to teach them how to use video. And really what that's meant is that people have then started to look for innovative ways to keep the process moving, but also to stay relevant to the market and also then start looking at ways to bring their clients closer to them. So there's been a massive opportunity that I think some people have taken in the last year. Some have just looked at things like Zoom and Teams and just looked at ways to continue meeting on video. And others have looked at how they can keep that process going by cutting time to hire using video. And I think that's the biggest change that people have seen, and that masses of folk have started to realise that you can cut significant parts of the process away by offering more value early and make yourself more relevant and sticky to the client, I guess.
So we're seeing lots of change with the sort of relevance of the clients. Let's flip basically back into the Jump team. We're working with clients all day, every day. Talk to us about how clients are agencies are adopting video and how we see those agencies now selling clients to the team that sort of links in with Nick, and then we can bring Nick back in from a recruitment point of view to see how that's working.
Well, I think if I can perhaps kick this point off, I mean, a lot of my clients now have adopted video platforms, and some obviously Odro. And I think where it appears to work absolutely very well indeed is where it's wrapped up, as it were, in the enhancement of the offering from the client, from the recruitment business to the clients. In other words, it forms part of a new package, shall we say. It's a method, I think, of enhancing the journey of offering candidates to clients, of providing a platform for candidates to clients and so forth. And I think it speeds that process up. There's no question now, statistically speaking, from my clients, they're getting quicker results using these platforms. It's enhancing the methods of actually getting clients to review candidates and so forth. And, you know, absolutely, it's one area of the way to go in terms of providing additional tools to clients to make quicker decisions, particularly during a candidate shortage market.
I think you're absolutely right, Paul. I think we talk about this candidate short market, and Paul, you've been around more than most of us, and I don't mean that in a negative way, by the way, but this is the best market for a recruitment agency, because you'd rather have it candidate short than the other way around, and a shortage of jobs. So this comes back to, why would a client pay an agency? They pay an agency because we can find candidates and we can represent them really well with the organization that we're actually trying to serve. So this is the perfect storm for me. You've just touched upon it there, but I think when we talk about technology, and it's not just video, it could be technology as a whole, but video is a big part of it. I think for me, it's about how well we know the candidate and how well we can represent that candidate back to the client. And this is about efficiency. It speeds the process up for the agency, it speeds it up for the candidate, but we've got to think about the benefit for the hiring manager. It really does benefit the hiring manager because it speeds the process up for them and it saves them time. And if it does that and it makes the candidate experience better, then for me, it's a win-win all round.
I think if
sorry, go ahead, Dave. I was going to say, to add to that, Paul, I think we had an online discussion about 6-7 weeks ago with just the clients. And what the clients were saying is, give me something different, give me something fresh. And whilst video technology has been around for a little while, certainly in the last 18 months with what we've all been through, the acceleration and the adoption of it has been to the benefit of both the agency and the client. And I know that clients that I've got that use Odro and other platforms, they've certainly seen an increase in their sales.
It's interesting when we sort of think about time and differentiating ourselves. It is about the client gaining more time, but also having a better due diligence on their process. And it's interesting how many clients that, when you speak to recruitment agencies, they say what my client likes about a video is that they can see the person, because usually it's that initial connection. So rather than when that person walks through the door, you go instantly, I dislike that person. And then they think I've got now 60 minutes now to do a whole interview. Now that process is foreshortened all the time. So it's a really interesting way of sort of moving forward. So when we start to look at that, one of the biggest worries that clients had would not have the time, or they would state they wouldn't have the time to watch videos. So obviously, Nick, you're right in the heartbed of that, of speaking to lots of your clients that are all recruitment agencies in the main. How's that changed from a client's perspective on how they view videos and how much they watch of a video?
That look, a lot of our clients, when we engaged with them originally, a lot of our clients did have that concern. They go, look, my client does not have the time to sit and watch 5 videos of candidates. Like, what we're not saying is you're sending hour-long videos. What we're saying is you're agreeing the 3 key points that would cut out process for the client. The key 3 things at the first stage of the telephone stage of the interview process right now can be amalgamated into a video with the consultant. And what you're actually doing is offering the client a time saver. As the recruiter, and the value to the client is that you're buying time back for the client by taking on an additional step for you. Right, you're going to meet that candidate anyway. So are you actually taking on an additional step? Maybe, maybe not. It's probably a contentious point that people would argue over. But what it allows you to do is offer that value to the client, so that in the time that they would spend, you're telling me you've got 3 stakeholders at client side that are going to sit down, either have a 15-minute call a piece or are going to spend an hour with a candidate. That's 3 hours of your stakeholder time at the client side, when in reality we can cover that off in a 5-minute long video or less, and then we can talk about moving forward with the strongest candidates and moving them further in the process quicker. Like that's been the value in that respect, for sure. I mean, you can see the stats here, obviously, like 69% of decision makers said they'd prefer to watch a short video to learn about a product or a service, right? That's not specific to recruitment, but that is exactly what we're looking at. We're offering the majority of the market what they want now by pitching video as a value add, but it's how you present it as a benefit.
Yeah.
So are you saying then, if you look at, say, the videos, how you pitch it, because obviously the age-old thing was, you take a candidate's CV, you either put it in your format and send it across, or you put a cover sheet on and send it across in their format. Are you now saying that, clients, when, if we spoke to clients, what would they prefer? Would they prefer a paper CV, or would they prefer a video? How's that swing moving?
I think there's like the standard, like if people another kickback people will say is, like, my clients aren't asking for it, so they're not asking for it because everyone groups video. It's the same as anything. You're a recruiter. Well, there's multiple silos inside recruitment, right? You've then got markets, you've then got contract, perm, temp. You don't bracket everyone in the exact same way. People don't understand. That's the messaging piece, right? People don't fully understand. You see video and they go, well, it's Zoom or it's Skype historically, or it's Teams. It's the education around the value of that. So when people are saying my client isn't asking for it, for example, it's probably not that they're not asking for it, it's that they're not aware of it, which is why you've then got you've got the opportunity to be an early adopter, like you mentioned earlier, Howard, but you've also got the opportunity to productize that and sell that as a value add that is then becomes a valuable offering, which would make the client see the value in that.
If we talk about seeing the value in that, so if I then flip the question back into the jump team, obviously, as I say, we work with lots of clients that use video technology. What's their feedback and their learning experience of, from being when they first initially started to use it to now? I mean, there's going to be lots of different points of this. So what's the feedback that we've had from our clients?
Well, I think one of the things that we should mention here is that as great a tool as video platforms are, it's one element of the whole process of promoting candidates. And I said at the beginning of this discussion that we are, and Paul backed this up, we're now in a candidate market. It's a market that I've been in before, and for the next 2 to 3 years, as far as one can see, there are going to be more roles out there than available candidates. As Paul says, that's a great place to be, and there's no question we're in this real economic, or the beginning of an economic boom, which is going to be brilliant for recruitment businesses in the next 2-3 years. The video platforms provide a really good element to the way we promote candidates. That if I talk about the way that my clients have been using these platforms, I think there's no question that they've been beneficial, but there are some lessons to be learned. Number one, I think you need to train your people to use them correctly. One of my clients has been using one of the video platforms for a while. We used it for a period of time, and then we did some reviews on the videos that the consultants were putting out there, and it was very useful training. And it came down to a whole range of basics: the lighting, the sound, their body posture when they were on the videos, the way they were presenting the candidates, their speech, intonation, their speed of speech, and so forth. And we made adjustments to the way in which people were promoting candidates using the platforms. And I think you can't just buy a platform like this and then just use it. You've got to train people to use it. Absolutely. And a very important point here is make sure you coach your clients, and in particular your candidates, to use the platform properly. And I think that is, in a sense, pretty much the way you would train people to conduct themselves on an interview. I'd like to think that everybody listening here spends a lot of time preparing candidates and indeed their clients for the interviews. Well, this is just another part of that process. You do the same thing. You can't just buy a piece of kit like Odro and say, this is it, it's going to transform the way we work. There's a huge amount of work that goes around it, and it's a constant method of, or a constant means of upgrading and upskilling people as you get used to using it.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you there.
I've had the same experience, Paul, with some of my clients, where the owners have bought the product, been really excited about it. The product itself is excellent, but it hasn't been adopted by the consultants at the desk in the same way because they haven't really bought into it. And it's just needed constant training and constant reminder. Those that have seen the most benefit are the ones that have made the most sales. So I think there's still a learning curve for many companies to come through, to go through.
But isn't that the usual sort of recruitment sort of process, isn't it? And then we go back to technology. I remember taking on a company and I said, can you talk me through your CRMs? And they had 3 CRMs sat on a shelf that they'd bought and never actually taken out of the packet, so to speak, because they didn't know how to roll it out or how to use it. And then obviously online came along. And so that's the sort of thing we generally buy the product, and then we never actually invest in time to actually understand the product and know the product. So Paul Sharp and I worked with a client yesterday, and I've done this with other clients, where you get some of your people within the business, rather than you as the leader, to become the champion of that process. They own the process. So it's up to them to help develop and help to understand and learn that process. And I think that's when you start to get the best out of any technology that you buy, as soon as you understand the process and then know how to actually then leverage that to your advantage, rather than just being a poor adopter. And I think there's a big difference between those that use the actual process properly and those that just use it. There's a very big difference in the end quality that the actual end client sees.
I think there's a second part to that, Howard, as well. And we touched upon this yesterday. And this isn't aimed at Odro, but technology providers can sometimes, promise you the best platform, the best technology, it's going to solve your problems. And then the minute you've signed the contract, the training and the leveraging the return on investment can be sometimes a little bit lacking. And I think that's where, agencies have got to be demanding, whether it be, your CRM or your tech provider or your video platform provider. You've got these guys are the experts, so you've got to be demanding from them to get the support, get the training, get the development, make sure you can really properly integrate it into your businesses. And the people that have done that and been demanding and got that time have done this exceptionally well and are getting the good returns.
I think I've classed it as PAI, haven't I, to my clients. I said, you've got to be a PAI, pain in the arse to your supplier, because you want to be on top of them all the time, asking them questions. So let's flip that back into you, Nick. So do you find that lots of your clients adapt your product and then you hear very little from them, but you find the ones that really, really take it off are on the phone with you all the time, how to help, how to develop, how to improve? Do you find, which ones do you find get the best results?
Yeah, look, no question. So the two really important points there that you guys discussed. So the first is, look, what you have is, what we see is, look, owner-managed businesses, right? They are in charge of everything. They are looking at everything. They're responsible for everything. They are in a million things every single day. They are not the best person, in my opinion, to be managing that rollout. It is imperative, like you said, to identify someone in the business who is bought in and who is excited, and stick with that as a project lead, for example. Those businesses that do that, in my opinion, are those that are more engaged with their customer success. But equally, yes, you need to be a pain in the arse. Absolutely. The more you're talking to us, the more we know you're engaged, and the more we know we're going to get success from you and greater ROI. That's a no-brainer, obviously. But it's very much on the supplier to have a robust implementation process that isn't what you described: a signed contract and a see in 24 months and hopefully you sign again. You will never get rid of Odro if your returns are strong enough. That's a fact. So onboarding, one-to-one coaching, not just a team rollout, not just a mapping and going, how are you going to use it? Right, great. Well, look, here's the buttons. See you later. If you need us, we're here. It's very much a planned rollout with that project leader, that person who's going to lead it. It's the person going, this is how we're going to do it. These are the timescales in which we're going to do it. Great. Look, now we know. We know who's using it. For example, that's why we built in full reporting capability into Odro, so that whoever that project lead is or who that owner of the business is can check in and see only what they need to see. They can see who's using it, when it's been used, engagement. They can track ROI, logged placements, logged margin through contractors, like all that sort of stuff. But equally, our customer success team are notified when individual users don't log into the system over certain periods of time. And again, that's why we then target our customer success team to proactively have consultant calls, as we call them. So it's not just about organising time with the whole group, it's about organising time with the individual who's struggling, and then bringing in those who are very successful using Odro to try and bring everyone else up the ladder, because they're naturally the person in the business who's more influential, for example, amongst their peers. But that's two really good points, in my opinion.
It's about proactivity on understanding the technology that you've bought, rather than the traditional recruitment method: buy it, throw it at people, and hope they actually adopt it and work it from there.
Sometimes it works, most of the time it doesn't.
Yeah. So looking at that, then, how else the video technology can be used to develop your client relationships then?
Look, in the past 18 months, people have bought houses and sold houses without meeting the person they've bought businesses and sold business. They've taken investment. They've done all the things. It's continued to allow society to move forward. It's continued to allow you to come closer to your client by using it for post offer. For example, if we look at all the different stages of recruitment where video can play a part, post offer engagement, using different parts of the platform to allow you to engage with the prospect through a period which is the most worrying part, right? We can find candidates, we can get them to interview, and we can get them an offer, but it's then the notice period, the 2, 4, 6, 8, 12-week period where people start to get a wobble. Am I doing the right thing? Certainly right now, which is why it's such a candidate short market, because people are, there's a lot more jobs than there are candidates, and there's a lot less reason for candidates to move right now because they're in control of the whole process. Whereas just looking at that one particular part of the process, you can increase your start rate from offer significantly by engaging those candidates through the process, by introducing them to their team, by dropping them short videos and on a weekly basis to say, how are you doing? Look, we've just set your laptop up. This is where you'll be sitting in the office. Really looking forward to getting you started. Look, we'd love to introduce you to X, Y, and Z. Let's get a video meeting set up. And that's just one part of the process. And that is a much more valuable service to like get rid of dropout rates, for example, but just generally.
So let's flip that back to the team. So we talk a lot about features, advantages, and benefits, and have our clients got the most out of video technology. Let's look at, go back into our client base and look at what we're hearing. What are they getting out? What are they saying are the features, advantages, and benefits of using video technology compared to a different methodology of putting our candidates to our clients?
I kind of touched on this earlier. I think it speeds up the process. I think, we all know, everybody listening here knows that you send a digital CV, an email to a client, and it often sits in their inbox, and they don't necessarily read it quickly, and they take days sometimes to respond, if they respond at all. Whereas, what I'm hearing, and I'm quite prepared to believe this, is that the videos being sent produces a much more emotive response, a quicker response. People are responding quicker. It's speeding up that speed of, if you like, that speed of response, which enables candidates to engage with clients at a quicker rate. And I think if you're looking at where we're at today as a candidate short market, and we all know where we are with that, it means that if you have a great candidate, you need to move fast at getting them interviews, and multiple interviews, because they're not going to be on the job market for more than a nanosecond. So getting your clients to respond quickly to your approach is vital. Getting them to say, yes, they want to see your candidates quickly is really, really important. So I think when we look at one of the advantages, there's no question that it is improving the speed of response.
Dave, what have you found with your clients?
Yeah, I think it's about speed of response. It's just that last point that Paul has made. Once everybody had got on board and everybody was using the technology the correct way and the best way,
yeah,
and the training, and then the reminder training, and then the reminder training again, and then it became a bit like riding a bike. It's like, actually, this is quite normal. Candidates were very happy with it. There wasn't an issue there, and the speed of response was better. And to Paul's point, a nanosecond of availability may just be too long at the moment for some in the tech world and the engineering world and in certain STEM sectors. There just aren't enough candidates. So anything that can make the candidate sticky to you as an agency and to the client, then that's where the benefits are.
There's another point here which I think we shouldn't discount, which is the cost of making a bad hire. And I look towards Heather here because she'll be able to help with some CIPD stats, I'm sure, putting her on the spot. The cost of making a bad hire in a professional role is something like, if my memory serves me right, it's about 120 grand. So the cost of getting it wrong is really costly to an organisation, not just in terms of cost, but in terms of time as well. We know, and Kevin Green wrote a really great book on this, and he covered it off in some of his research, the chances of making a successful hire from CV alone is something like, from memory, less than 20%. You've got a better chance of throwing the CVs up in the air, letting them land on the floor and picking one up and presenting that to the client as the ideal candidate. We know people build trust through building on things like rapport. You can build rapport through more through video technology than what you can with CVs. We've got to flip this the other way around. The benefit to the client is getting the right hire. And video technology for me is a key enabler to helping clients get the right hire. And this is a benefit. It's not a feature, this is a benefit. And if we can sell the benefits to our clients, the end user, I can't think of many, there'll be an odd one, but I can't think of many cases where clients would not want to embrace it.
Yeah, that's fair. Like, there was a point dropped in, I think it was Simon, that said, like, not every client's going to want it as part of the process, and that's bang on. It's understanding where 100%. It fits and where it doesn't, and I think that's a really, really good point. What we're not saying is that it's this sort of silver bullet that changes the recruitment world forever and the whole recruitment market changes everything it's always done. It's not, but what it does do is offer those who need more value, and those who need to cut time to hire.
Nick, I've just got a quick question for you, just because I've seen who's in the watching. Do you find Odro is more applicable to the private sector than public sector, or do you think it's even? And would you apply the same principle to the not-for-profit sector? So are you seeing it embraced in the public sector and not-for-profit sector, or do you think they're behind the curve a little bit?
Historically, we can always target, this is before a lot of the tool was built, right? So historically, when it was purely video and presenting candidates on a shortlist, we targeted perm recruiters in a tech sales marketing market, right? Because we knew that was our bread and butter. But as we've developed different parts of the tools, and as the world has developed and changed and what have you, we have hundreds of customers in the public sector, a number of customers in the not-for-profit and the sort of third sector that are utilising this really, really well. Because regardless, the recruitment process is the recruitment process, right? It doesn't matter what you're doing. It varies in how it operates, obviously, but it's still, you still follow a very similar process and how from start to finish, right? And it's transferable into all sectors, in my opinion. We now see that, like, as I say, we've got almost 1,000 recruitment brands using the platform. We now know that across all sectors.
Okay. So if we looked at that, so what we're saying is that, and what the Jump team is saying, what you're saying is that we've gone from that 1D CV, 2D telephone conversation and CV, to now a 3D view of our candidate, which gives our client an overall better view of the candidate prior to actually meeting the candidate in person. And what you're saying early on, Nick, is about uniformity of that recruitment process. I think, Paul, you talked about it earlier on as well, about if we all asked the candidates the same 3 questions or 4 questions, whatever it be, that would be the initial interview process for that client, we are reducing the client's time, because we should know the answers to that so we can reject people and only put people that forward. And therefore, he is then looking at that person on behaviors and how they've answered that, which is a more dominant part of the recruitment methodology, which is coming in now. So what we're saying from a recruitment point of view is that we've actually moved into a full 3D model, albeit on a 2D platform such as video.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, another point is, when the client watches your consultant that you've engaged and you agree those questions, and the consultant's on a video with the candidate saying, question 1, this is it, gets an answer and goes, I'm going to probe for more information now, and asks a second part to that question, and then pushes slightly further to get more information. That is justification and why they're paying you the fee that they're paying you, and why your fee is what it is. Because they're sitting going, that's why I'm paying that person, not because they're looking through LinkedIn 7 hours a day, finding a few people and saying, can I ping your CV to somebody? They're taking the time, they're giving me value, and they're asking me the questions. They're asking the questions that I want answered, and they're probing further because they understand what I want.
So you're getting rid of that, inverted commas, the client's view that we are just a CV chucker, i.e. we get a job, put a job on a job board, they send a lot of CVs, we tentatively read them and chuck the ones that look almost like what the client and the client does all the work from that end. So what you're saying is that you can now demonstrate the value and the quality of that. So if we flip that question then and say, from your point of view then, Nick, what's been the sort of the success of adding video technology to the recruitment process? What success have you started to see right across all platforms?
Yeah. So first and foremost, our clients always report a higher, using the different parts. I'm thinking of all the different parts of the platform, right? We're talking very much about video interview at the minute, but there's obviously video outreach and there's video business development and there's and all the different parts that come with the platform, right? But one is increased engagement with the candidates that they want to speak to, because it's very hard to set yourself apart in a market where everyone says and does a very similar thing, and it's very hard to have a USP. And I coined the term a true USP, but nobody seems to buy into it. But I'm going to say it here in case one of the 43 people listening wants to start saying it and say Nick Beecroft told them about it. But what it gives you the opportunity to do is genuinely set yourself apart and offer more value, rather than just the generic copy paste BD message or headhunt message that everyone is sending, where your hit rate is less than 20%. What it allows you to do is increase that engagement. We see an average of 73% engagement using our Odro capture tool, which is designed for headhunting and BD, right, across our customer base. That is around 400 to 450% uplift from the average 18 to 21% on text-based messaging. That in itself is a huge increase in engagement, and from that respect. And then exclusive and retained roles is something that our customers always report to us as, we were 5% retained, we are now 15% retained, we are now 20% retained. Increasing your relationship, moving customers who you have historically had signed terms with, that it's very hard to then move them up the value chain without giving them something new. We either need to start up here, or we need to find a way to then move them through the value chain. And that gives you the ability to go back into existing clients and then start selling that as a value added service, saying, but you understand, I can't work against 5 other agencies, so this isn't going to work. The value is to use this, and this is what I want to do for you.
I'll just add something here, Nick, that, you know, what we're talking about here is improving or enhancing your influencing skills, you know, and we engage people as consultants in our businesses who I hope have high levels of influence. They have the ability to communicate effectively, and they have the ability to convince people, if that's the expression, certainly influence people to move in certain directions, shall we say. They have to have high levels of emotional intelligence. And if there's a method, or there are methods of exposing that level of influence that gives your consultants and your business an edge over your competitors, then you need to embrace that. And part of that is certainly to look at technology like Odro, but always keeping in mind that this is about influencing, this is about promoting candidates in a market right now and in the foreseeable future that will be candidate short. How do you influence your clients to see your candidates quickly, to make quicker decisions? How do you ensure that your candidates perform well on interviews? How do you personally, as a consultant, get yourself into a position where your command, your ability to influence others is seen, is exposed, is very prominent? And using a video platform amongst other methods is definitely going to assist in that search, if you like, to gain a competitive advantage.
Yeah, and look, there's other things, right? You get more control over your process, because you know who's viewing it and when. That's why we built in heat maps, and that's why we built in Xray view, as we call it, which is like a 7-point data spider graph on how each candidate's been viewed, and average engagement on candidates, and you can see which candidates have been viewed and which candidates aren't. It allows you to then control the process and ensure that everyone has been viewed on a level playing field. I'm sure we're going to touch on diversity later, but like just that piece, just right now, it gives you the ability to then start offering value and another policy that your client might be interested in understanding.
It's interesting how we can blend the old recruitment process, because, you know, Paul, for those who've been on all our webinars, will often mention that his days at Brook Street was absolutely in get a candidate in, then call 2 or 3 clients and get that candidate booked in for a job before the candidate leaves the office.
Yeah.
But what we're actually doing, and I was working with a big client, or for a big client, way 3 or 4 years ago, and they were changing the whole of their tech stack to be able to take out a laptop to a client. They've already pre-warned the candidates that they're going to see that client, and therefore when they get to the client and the client says, I like that candidate, instantly created a video interview there and then over the actual wave. So again, massively increasing the performance and capability and differentiating hugely, that you have almost candidates on tap. Now, so with the candidate shine marketplace, if you have a candidate straight in, connecting that client to that candidate straight away via video is a really time-saving process and creates huge speed and efficiency in getting the client to see the candidate, but B, allowing the client to carry on with their job, which is what they're paid to do, which is what most clients really want to do. So most people who know me know where there's a yin, there's a yang. Video platforms have come in and they've created a huge wave. But there's obviously a downside to that. Can you talk about some of the downsides that you've come across, Nick, with people and what they've done, especially as you mentioned there, looking at diversity and how maybe sending videos maybe creates a poor diversity selection process? Yeah,
again, a lot of our clients, that's one of the first questions they ask. How does that help diversity? How does it hinder diversity and inclusion? Technology doesn't create a bias, right? It highlights it. Which is the first point. It's the humans that create the bias, which I think is a key point. And if someone is biased, they'll be biased now. They'll be biased at a final stage interview if that's the first time they meet them. They'll be biased at a first stage interview on a telephone, by accent, by whatever it is, right? Whatever it is that person's being biased about. But it's our job, in my opinion, as recruiters, to be responsible about that. I wouldn't want, personally, to put a candidate in a situation if I knew that person was going to be judged on any factor of who they are or what they are. All right. Whereas what it allows us to do is actually using, that's kind of touching the last point, why we built in all the analytics and intelligent analytics that we did build in, so that, for example, one of our clients, Robert Walters Group, they fed back to us that they really, really strongly use it to support diversity and inclusion, because it allows you to identify any given point at an earliest possible point that someone is not viewing everyone on the same level playing field, and you can start to see trends in viewing behaviour from the client side, and it allows you then to address that and support that with the relevant people at the other side. It ensures that everyone is asked the same question set, which is something we touched on previously as well, because the other feedback we get from our customers a lot is that candidate goes for 3 interviews, there is no uniformity at the client side on the interview questions that they're asking. Everyone's asking and judging people on different question sets, and come at the end and go, I like them, I don't, I do, and they come to not on a uniform set of questions. Everyone is viewed in the same, given the same amount of time. Everyone is given the same platform, and everyone is being viewed and given the appropriate time and opportunity to present the skill set that they have, more than just a sheet of paper or whatever that might be.
Nick, just playing devil's advocate, do you get the reverse where, it's that judging a book by its cover, where, is an argument to say that hiring managers might make judgments based around what they're seeing rather than what the individuals are doing?
I mean, yeah, sure. There will be people out there, I'm sure, that would do that. But what video, that would maybe be the case if it was a photograph of a candidate, which has historically been the case, or maybe sometimes been the case. But by giving someone a question set, preconceived idea can then be overcome by going, well, hold on a minute, I know that you didn't watch the video, so I know that you can't judge I know that you can't judge the candidate on anything other than the CV. The whole point in us using video and why we agreed we would ask these questions is so that these candidates would have the opportunity to bring their skill set to life. Do me a favour, watch the 3-minute video and then talk to me about their experience.
Yeah, good point.
Heather, obviously, this is more of a HR sort of thing than anything else. How have you found that from a video point of view, a diversity point of view? How do you find video would sit into that world? Especially in 2 weeks' time, we've got lots of diversity webinars coming up. How do you think video fits into that diversity world?
I think it's interesting, and I particularly liked what Nick had to say about technology doesn't create diversity and doesn't create issues with diversity, and I think you're right. So we have this very old traditional view that we take all the identifying criteria away in HR so that we only give people information. I think what I only give them information that's relevant to the job. But I think what we're doing is dumbing down with that, and we're assuming that we're going to build systems that that deal with the lowest common denominator, with that tiny number of people who will discriminate based visually on what they see. And I think it's much more important to play to the strengths of the tool, because that actually, I think video gives you an ability to know people and to judge them on a level playing field, and to present a more sophisticated set of data about individuals, and to truly provide consulting services to our clients. And I don't think the fact that one or two hiring managers will make the wrong judgments should stop us from that depth of information and consulting that we can provide. And of course, when we see that, and it's great that Odro and the other platforms build in the ability to spot those trends, then of course it's our responsibility to address that. And we can't ignore it, but it shouldn't be what drives the way in which we behave.
I'll just add to this point and say, we talked about candidate short market, that the fact that we all know, and we're already seeing an explosion of opportunities, vacancies coming up. And I think there are our clients now and recruitment businesses are in a position where, it sounds odd to say this, they can make choices in terms of which companies they wish to work with and which companies they choose not to work with. And to pick up Nick's point, I think that there are tough choices. No one wants to turn business away. But if you're working with employers who are clearly demonstrating behaviors and attitudes that are to you abhorrent or immoral or actually illegal, don't work with them. There's plenty of business elsewhere. If you can find great candidates, trust me on this point, you'll find opportunities for them if, as we said already, you're proactive in promoting those candidates. So I think this kind of, picking up Nick's point, and I agree with him totally, why would you choose to work or continue to work with organizations who have a lousy attitude to diversity amongst other things? Don't work with them. Go find other clients that are more enlightened.
So let's look at this, because there's a couple of questions coming that sort of link to each other. And I was going to ask a similar question based on my son's experience of trying to get a job. Put my son in front of a human being, and he's reasonably gregarious and outgoing and can hold a really good conversation. Put him in front of a video platform, and my son becomes an instant plank. Absolute plank. So we're going to have candidates who are reluctant and nervous about going on a video platform, and we've got some people who are reluctant taking up that technology from the client point of view as well. How do we get candidates to overcome that sort of situation? Because as much as I tried with my son, it was almost impossible. That he'd gone from having eloquent sort of sentences well constructed to this stuttering fool that couldn't get anything out at all, and it really prohibits him getting a job. It was really quite hard work for him to get a job. So how do you help train your candidates and influence your clients on, because obviously clients will be doing video interviewing again, to become more screen friendly, let's say?
Yeah. Excuse me, drank so much water since we've been on here, sorry. That's fair questions, definitely, and it ties in with another question that came in. I don't know if it was just to me or to all of us, but it was when I can get candidates on Zoom call, I'm struggling to get them on any other sort of video, like how do I overcome that, which ties into the same question, obviously, right? First and foremost, it's about humanizing it. It's not just it's not just automating it entirely to the point whereby CV comes in and they automatically get a response to say, here's a video if you want a job. Give me some answers. That's one way to cut your engagement rate. First and foremost, is there will always be a need for a recruiter. There will always be a need for humanizing the process. You know what I mean? So you first and foremost, your job is to get a candidate excited about the role. Your job is to find a role that's relevant to the candidate and get them excited about it to the point whereby they become a committed candidate through the process. So that's why, for example, on a live meeting on Odro, for example, you can choose to record when you want to record. It's very much about getting people on, having that early conversation. How are you doing? What's the weather like? Did you watch Scotland get put out yesterday? And all that sort of general chit chat that you would have. And then taking them on to a point where they're comfortable and selling the benefit of that. The benefit to the candidate, by the way, is I'm not going to ask you to ask for a dentist appointment, a doctor's appointment, half day for 3 interviews for 3 different jobs, because what I've got the ability to do is ask you the relevant questions about your skill set. Now, if we can just take 5 minutes, I'll be there with you. We'll make sure we're comfortable. Let's just get online and have a chat, just like Zoom, and then we can talk about what happens from there. And then saying, great, I'm going to actually open doors to 7 or 8 or 9 different clients that you and I agree. By doing so, I'm not going to ask you to go to 9 different interviews to find out what's right for you, because I know what's right for you in that respect, and I can take that to the client, and we can talk about getting you forward for interviews where you have a strong chance of getting that role when you're excited and interested about it. If that makes sense.
It does. It makes perfect sense. So as always, we try to finish on time, and today we're almost on time. We're just a minute before that, but obviously there'll be no doubt another question and maybe some more answers to come. So what we're saying is, when we start to look at the technology, what we're saying is that video platform has a huge uplift from a client and a candidate point of view with regards to the success rate of a recruitment process. From a BD point of process, it is far more engaging with our clients, and we started there. But the problem is, we've got to learn the product and learn the tool. And what your comment there, Nick, is that, you know, the owner manager businesses pushing it out to somebody else to be the champion of that is a better way to get full engagement and full development and full understanding. And we've got to invest time in understanding the product, but also then training our staff to actually utilize the key features and benefits of the product and being able to go out there and actually sell the product to our client. We've got to get over our nervousness of using video, and we've also got to then help our candidates to get over that nervousness of using video, and then look at it as only as a part of the recruitment process, not the whole recruitment process. So it becomes part of actually developing a differentiator to our clients, and using it to its maximum capability. Is there anything that anyone would add to that we think that we've sort of missed out on, sort of how we're selling our candidates to our clients? Because we can use the old blended approach and a new approach using video technology, whether it be recorded or whether it be live, to make sure we maximize the candidates that are sat in front of us now that are a fee waiting to be happened, or it's a fee that we're just flushing down the drain because we're not utilizing the opportunities that we have or the technology that we have sat in front of us.
Yeah, I think, Howard, just to reinforce this point, that it is a kind of interesting and fascinating blend of old style recruitment, i.e. the old, back to my Alfred Marks / Brook Street days of 10-point plan. Make sure when you're sitting next to a candidate, euphemistically speaking, you make 10 calls on their behalf and you try your best to get them 3 interviews, because candidates need choices when they're looking for new jobs. And I think it's the old school methods of recruitment allied with new technology that is the way forward.
I agree. And there's 2 points on that I can see. One is using the analytics to understand which candidates are of the preference to the client early, so that you can start to, 1, keep those candidates warm, and 2, take the other candidates that are unlikely to get that job and start taking them out to the market sooner, so that your competitor doesn't do that, right?
100%.
And the second point for me is a tool that we released not long ago called Talent Dashboards. And a big part of the recruitment market is taking candidates to market and reverse marketing them or speccing them or floating them or whatever you might call it. And what that tool allows you to do is give the candidates more of a platform, because it allows you to control by taking a spec that historically we would have done anyway and presenting that with a video, but without the worry that someone's going to see that video, then take that candidate, for example, which is obviously why you take personal detail off, etc. Because you give magic links, you white label domains, it tracks who's watching those videos and who's looking at it, and it allows you to bring to life the candidate specs that you're putting forward as well. It allows you to attach anonymized CVs to headhunting messages or BD messages by selling into client X. Look, I notice you guys are hiring right now. I work in your market. I've got 3 great candidates that do X, Y, and Z that I think you'd be really interested in. Look, ordinarily we would do this on an email, but we do things really differently here at Nick Recruitment, and I've actually attached 3 anonymized CVs to the side. So have a look at those CVs and drop me a note back if you'd be interested in having a chat with them, but I'll phone you tomorrow to see what you think.
So it's very true, that blended, and we had that conversation last week about, candidate attraction, and I think the comment was that if you go back to sort of February 2020 and compare today, yes, people have left the market and people have joined the markets. The market's probably about the same size of the labour market available to us. What's changed is those people looking for a job have changed, but what's changed is the amount of clients now looking to engage with more people. Hence, there's a candidate shortage. So maximizing every candidate that comes past our desk is really important to make sure that we make as much opportunity. So if we're placing 3 CVs, whether it be video or paper, to a client, and one gets the job, let's say it's an average $5 deal, then there's 15 grand sat on your table that you're wasting unless you start to market them, or I like the word float them out to your marketplace. So next week, what we're going to look at is we're going to look at the candidate journey and how to address the candidate's journey and help strengthen your brand, build trust, build loyalty to increase market share. And parts of what we've talked about today in the last 2 weeks is all about that candidate journey and how we can improve that candidate journey. As we've been promoting every week over the last 2 or 3 weeks, in start of July, we're going to start a big DE&I webinar session with 4 webinars. We've got some world-class speakers on there. So we're already out on LinkedIn, pushing out on LinkedIn. The usual links will come out via email, sort of more appropriately nearer the date. But if you want to sign up early, feel free to do so. You'll also find them on our website. Nick, once again, thank you very much. I'm glad your voice held out after your screaming and shouting last night at Hampden. Jumping, thank you very much. And for all those who are attending, we look forward to seeing you all next week when we explore the candidate journey and how we can improve the candidate journey to make our capabilities of making placement far easier. Ladies and gents, thanks very much. We'll see you all next week.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers,
Brilliant.
Nick.
Cheers. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Nick.
Cheers.
Thanks, Nick.